The massive space station stretched across the void like a metal city, its lights twinkling against the darkness of space. Ambassador Park Ji-won pressed his face to the small window of the Earth transport ship and watched as they slowly approached the docking bay. His fingers moved to touch the sword at his side, feeling the familiar weight of the ancient blade. "First time seeing the Galactic Council station?" asked Captain Lee Hyun from behind him. The older man had been making this journey for 3 years, delivering supplies and messages between Earth and the various alien worlds. "First time for me," Ji-won replied, not taking his eyes off the enormous structure ahead. "It's bigger than the reports said." The docking process took nearly an hour. Mechanical arms reached out from the station and guided their small ship into a bay that could have held 50 vessels their size. When the airlock finally opened, Ji-won took a deep breath and stepped into a world unlike anything he had ever imagined. The corridor was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Tall, thin creatures with blue skin walked alongside short, furry aliens with too many eyes. Some floated in the air, others moved on mechanical limbs. The air smelled of different atmospheres mixed together, and the sound of dozens of different languages created a constant buzz of noise. Ji-won walked slowly through the crowd, his simple black uniform making him stand out among the colorful robes and shining armor worn by the other species. Several aliens stopped to stare at him, whispering to each other in languages the translator device in his ear could not understand. "The human delegation, I assume." Ji-won turned to see a creature that looked like a giant insect walking on 2 legs. Its voice came through a mechanical device attached to its throat, speaking perfect English with a slight buzzing sound. "I am Ambassador Park Ji-won of Earth," he said, offering a respectful bow. The insect's large compound eyes reflected the station's lights as it looked him up and down. "I am General Vexstar of the Corvin Forces. We have been curious about your species since the Council decided to consider your application for membership." Behind Vexter, other alien delegates had gathered. A creature made entirely of what looked like living crystal, pulsed with soft blue light. Another being that resembled a large lizard wearing military decorations stepped forward. "Your ship is quite small," the crystal being said, its voice sounding like wind chimes. "I am Prime 7 of the Helix Collective. Our scans show very basic technology." Ji-won smiled politely. "We prefer to keep things simple." This comment caused several of the aliens to make sounds that might have been laughter. The lizard creature, who introduced himself as General Cat, pointed at the sword hanging from Ji-won's belt. "And what is that primitive weapon doing here?" "This is a space station, not a museum. It's part of my ceremonial dress," Ji-won explained. "On Earth, I hold the title of Knight Ambassador." The translator devices struggled with the word knight. In some alien languages, it came out as ceremonial warrior. In others, it translated as outdated, noble, or ritual fighter. None of the translations seemed to capture the real meaning, and the confusion showed on the aliens' faces. Vexter's mandibles clicked together rapidly. "Knight, like the primitive warriors from your planet's ancient history. Do you also ride 4-legged animals and live in stone castles?" More alien laughter filled the corridor. Ji-won kept his expression calm and friendly, but his hand moved slightly closer to his sword's handle. "Something like that," he said quietly. Prime 7's crystal body brightened. "How fascinating that your species still clings to such outdated concepts. We have studied your history. These knights were simply soldiers with basic metal weapons and crude armor. Our weapons can destroy entire cities from orbit," General Cat added, his scaled lips pulling back to show sharp teeth. "What use is a metal blade against plasma cannons and energy shields?" A crowd of other aliens had gathered around them, drawn by the unusual sight of a human. Kuan could feel their eyes examining him like he was some kind of curious animal in a zoo. Many of them seemed amused by his appearance and his simple clothes. "The council meeting begins in 1 hour. Vexstar announced. I hope your knight title will help you in the negotiations, human. You will need all the help you can get. As the alien delegates moved away, chattering among themselves, G1 remained standing in the corridor. A few smaller aliens continued to stare at his sword, pointing and whispering to their companions. Captain Li Huyan appeared beside him, carrying G1's small travel bag. They don't seem very impressed with us, the captain said quietly. No, Guan agreed, watching the retreating figures of the alien delegates. They think we're primitive. They see the sword and assume it's just decoration. Well, isn't it? Li Han asked. I mean, what good is an old blade going to do against their advanced weapons? Ji-wan turned to look at the captain, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. They don't understand what the word knight really means. They think it's just a title from our past, and it's not. No, Captain, Ji-wan said, his hand resting on the sword's pommel. It's not just a title. It's a promise. The negotiation room was enormous, with a circular table that could seat representatives from 50 different worlds. Holographic displays floated above the surface, showing star maps, trade routes, and territorial boundaries that stretched across the galaxy. Ambassador Park Ji-wan sat in the chair marked for Earth, feeling very small among the towering alien delegates surrounding him. 3 days had passed since his arrival, and each day had brought worse news for humanity. The proposed agreement now showed Earth receiving access to only the most distant and worthless star systems, while the powerful alien races claimed all the valuable territories for themselves. Let us review the current proposal, Prime 7 announced, its crystal body casting rainbow patterns on the table as it spoke. The holographic display changed to show a map of the galaxy with different colored sections. Earth's tiny blue section was pushed far to the edge, away from all the major trade routes and resource-rich worlds. General Vexstar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Very generous, considering your species has contributed nothing to galactic civilization. These outer systems should provide adequate space for your population to grow slowly over the next few centuries. Li Minho, who had been sent as Earth's military advisor, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ji-wan could see the frustration in the younger man's eyes, but motioned for him to remain silent. The terms seem quite restrictive, Ji-wan said carefully. Our people had hoped for access to at least some of the middle territories. This comment caused General Kot to laugh, a harsh sound that came from deep in his reptilian throat. Hope is a luxury for species that have earned their place in the galaxy. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are barely capable of interstellar travel. Our analysis confirms this assessment, added Dr. Selenoth, a tall gray alien whose large black eyes never seemed to blink. We have examined the technical specifications of your fleet. Kinetic weapons, basic shields, simple fusion engines. Most impressive for a young species, but hardly competitive with established powers. Vexstar stood up to his full height, his wings spreading slightly in a gesture of dominance. Let me demonstrate the difference in our capabilities. He pressed a control on his wrist, and a small device appeared on the table. With another touch, it projected a hologram of a massive space battle. This is from our recent campaign against the rebel worlds, Vexstar explained proudly. Watch as our plasma weapons tear through their defenses like paper. The hologram showed Corvin ships firing bright energy beams that completely destroyed enemy vessels in seconds. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as entire fleets were eliminated with frightening efficiency. Impressive, Ji-wan admitted. Your technology is certainly advanced. Advanced. General Kat snorted. Human. Your people still use gunpowder weapons on your planet's surface. We stopped using such primitive tools 3,000 years ago. Prime's light pulsed as it accessed data files. Our records show that human soldiers carry metal projectile weapons and wear fabric armor. Some units still use bladed weapons for close combat. It is like watching Stone Age hunters trying to fight modern armies. The other aliens around the table made various sounds of agreement and amusement. A delegate from the Spiral Alliance, whose multiple tentacles allowed him to operate several devices at once, brought up images of Earth's military on the holographic display. "Look at this," he said, pointing to footage of human soldiers training. "They practice sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat. Why would any modern warrior need such skills when energy weapons can kill from great distances?" Lee Min-ho's face had turned red with anger, but Giwan placed a gentle hand on his arm to keep him calm. "Perhaps," Giwan said quietly, "there are some things that cannot be measured by technology alone." This statement caused Vexstar to buzz with laughter. "Spoken like a true primitive. Next you will tell us that courage and honor can stop plasma bolts, or that your ceremonial sword can cut through energy shields," added General Kat, pointing at the blade hanging from Jiwan's belt. Dr. Zilanoff tilted his head, studying the weapon with scientific interest. "We have analyzed that device during your stay here. Iron and carbon, basic metallurgy, no energy components whatsoever. A museum piece, at best. It has some decorative value," admitted Prime 7. "The craftsmanship shows attention to detail, but as a weapon, it is utterly useless against any modern defense system." Vexter walked around the table until he stood directly behind G1's chair. "Tell me, Knight Ambassador, what would you do if I attacked you right now with my plasma rifle? Would you draw that ancient blade and challenge me to single combat, like in your old stories?" The room fell silent as all the alien delegates turned to watch this confrontation. Giwan remained seated, his hands folded calmly on the table. "If necessary," he said simply. The aliens burst into laughter. Several of them had to use translation devices to share the joke with species that didn't understand human humor. "Magnificent," Vexstar declared. "The primitive actually believes his metal stick could threaten me." He activated a small energy weapon on his arm, causing it to glow with deadly power. "This can burn through starship armor. Your sword would melt before it could touch me." G1 looked up at the towering insect creature. "Would you like to test that theory?" The laughter stopped abruptly. Vexter's compound eyes focused on the human with new attention. "Are you challenging me, little knight? I'm simply offering to demonstrate what my people are truly capable of." The final negotiation session had been going for 6 hours, and the atmosphere in the room had grown thick with tension. The holographic displays now showed the ultimate demands from the alien powers, and they were worse than anything G1 had expected. Earth would not just receive the worthless outer territories, they would have to give up their existing colonies as tribute. General Vexstar stood at the head of the table, his massive form casting shadows across the star maps. "The terms are final," he announced, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. "Your species will surrender all colonies in the Tau Ceti and Wolf 359 systems to the Corvin Empire. In return, you will be granted basic membership status and access to 3 uninhabited worlds in the Outer Rim." Lee Min-ho could no longer contain his anger. "Those colonies have been home to millions of humans for generations. You can't just take them." "We can, and we will," General Kat replied coldly, his reptilian eyes gleaming. "Your people are squatters on worlds that should belong to superior species. We are being generous by allowing you to relocate peacefully." Prime 7's crystal body pulsed with soft light as it added, "Our calculations show that these colonies would be much more efficiently managed under Corvin administration. Human productivity in these systems is far below galactic standards." Dr. Zilanoff nodded his large gray head. "The mathematical evidence is clear. Your species lacks the technological capability to properly develop these worlds. It would be wasteful to leave them under human control." G1 had remained silent throughout this exchange, but now he slowly stood up from his chair. "And if we refuse these terms?" Vexstar's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. "Then you refuse them. But you should understand that the Corvin fleet is already positioned near your colonies. We have 47 warships armed with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Each ship could destroy one of your cities from orbit. Your entire defense fleet consists of 12 vessels, General Cott added helpfully. Primitive ships with kinetic weapons and basic shields. The battle would last perhaps 10 minutes. The other alien delegates murmured their agreement. Several of them had pulled up tactical displays showing the locations of both human and Corvan forces. The numbers were overwhelmingly against Earth. We have studied your military capabilities extensively, said Admiral Quex of the Hegemony Navy, a blue-skinned being with multiple arms. Your soldiers are brave, we will grant that. But bravery means nothing against superior firepower. One plasma strike can eliminate an entire battalion of your warriors. Lee Minho slammed his fist on the table. This isn't negotiation, this is robbery. This is reality, Vexstar replied calmly. The strong take from the weak. It has always been so, across all species and all worlds. Your people simply have not yet learned their place in the galactic order. Q-On walked slowly around the table, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. The alien delegates watched him with amusement, as if observing a caged animal pacing in its enclosure. There is another way, G1 said quietly. Prime 7's light flickered with curiosity. What way is that? The ancient protocols, Guan replied. Article 7 allows for trial by combat to settle territorial disputes between species. The room fell completely silent. Several aliens looked confused, while others began accessing their historical databases. Dr. Zilanoth was the first to speak. The ancient protocols have not been invoked in over 3,000 years, he said. They are considered obsolete in modern galactic law. But they remain valid, G1 stated firmly. I have studied your legal codes. Any member species can invoke the ancient protocols for matters of sovereignty and territorial rights. Admiral Quex laughed, a sound like water bubbling. You want to settle this with single combat? How wonderfully primitive. The concept is simple, G1 continued. Each side chooses a champion. They fight in the arena until one yields or is unable to continue. The winner's people gain full rights to the disputed territories. General Kott's scaled lips pulled back in a grin. And you would be Earth's champion, I suppose. The knight, with his metal sword. If my people agree, yes. Vexstar began to pace excitedly, his wings buzzing. This is perfect. I will personally crush this human and claim his colonies as trophies. It will be a lesson to other primitive species about challenging their betters. Wait, Prime 7 interjected. Are you certain about this, human? General Vexstar is one of the most skilled warriors in the galaxy. He has won battles against the Quantum Raiders and the Steel Brotherhood. His armor can withstand direct hits from starship weapons. G1 nodded calmly. I understand the risks. Your funeral, General Cat muttered. Literally. Dr. Zilanoth was still studying the legal documents. The protocols are indeed still binding law. If both sides agree, the combat must take place within 72 hours. The arena on level 7 can be activated for the event. Excellent, Vexstar declared. I accept this pathetic challenge. In 3 days, I will demonstrate why the Corvan Empire rules this sector of space. Lee Minho grabbed Giwan's arm. Sir, this is suicide. That creature could tear apart a tank with his bare hands. G1 looked at his military advisor with complete calm. Sometimes, young man, the only way forward is to show them exactly what they're dealing with. But you're just one man with a sword. Yes, G1 replied, a slight smile crossing his face. I am. The arena had not been used for thousands of years, but the ancient systems came to life with a deep humming sound that vibrated through the metal floors. Massive energy barriers rose from the ground, creating a circular fighting space in the center of the vast chamber. Above them, observation decks filled with beings from across the galaxy. who had come to witness what many were calling the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Giwan stood in the small preparation room, checking his simple cloth clothes, and running his fingers along the edge of his sword. The blade was old, passed down through generations of his family, but the metal was still sharp and clean. Lee Minho paced nervously behind him. "Sir, it's not too late to call this off," the younger man said for the 10th time. "We could find another way to negotiate." "There is no other way," Giwan replied calmly. "They've made their position clear. They see us as weak, primitive creatures who can be pushed around without consequence." Through the small window, they could see the other side of the arena, where General Vexstar was preparing. The Corvin warrior had arrived, wearing a suit of powered combat armor that made him look like a walking tank. Energy weapons were mounted on his arms and shoulders, while defensive shields flickered around his body like protective lightning. "Look at that armor," Lee Minho whispered. "Our intelligence reports say it can survive direct hits from starship cannons, and those weapons, each one could destroy a building." Kim Dae-ho, Earth's science officer, was studying readings on his portable scanner. "The energy output from his suit is incredible. He's basically a one-man army." In the observation decks above, thousands of aliens pressed against the barriers to get a better view. Most of them were betting on how quickly the human would be defeated. The shortest estimate was 15 seconds. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," announced the arena's ancient speaker system. "We are about to witness the first trial by combat under the ancient protocols in 3,000 years. The crowd grew quiet as both fighters were called to enter the arena. General Vexstar strode through his entrance like a conquering hero, his armor gleaming under the bright lights. The crowd cheered as his weapons powered up with threatening whines and his shields crackled with deadly energy. Then G1 walked through the opposite entrance. He looked impossibly small compared to his opponent. No armor, no energy weapons, no defensive systems. Just a man in simple clothes, carrying an old sword. The crowd fell silent, many of them feeling almost embarrassed for him. "This is not a fight," General Cott muttered from his seat in the VIP section. "This is an execution." Prime 7's crystal body pulsed with concern. "Perhaps we should stop this. The human clearly does not understand what he faces." Dr. Zillanoth was recording everything with multiple sensors. Fascinating. He shows no signs of fear despite facing certain death. Either he is incredibly brave or completely insane. In the arena, General Vexstar activated his external speakers so his voice boomed across the chamber. "Human, it is not too late to surrender. Kneel before me now, and I will make your death quick." Jiwan stood in the center of the arena, 20 meters away from his massive opponent. He looked up at the observation decks where thousands of aliens watched, then back at Vexstar. "I appreciate the offer," he said quietly, his voice somehow carrying clearly through the arena's acoustics. "But I must respectfully decline." Vexstar's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Then you choose to die with your primitive honor intact. So be it." The arena's referee, an ancient mechanical voice that had overseen countless battles in the distant past, began the countdown. "Combat will commence in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. G1 reached for his sword. 6, 5, 4. His fingers wrapped around the handle. 3, 2. The blade began to slide from its sheath. 1. G1 drew his sword completely. Something changed in that instant. The casual confidence that had filled Vexstar's posture suddenly faltered. His compound eyes, designed to track the fastest moving objects, focused intently on the human's stance. The sword was held not like a ceremonial prop or museum piece, but like a living extension of the man's body. There was no wasted motion, no nervous energy, no hesitation. G1 stood with the perfect balance of someone who had spent a lifetime mastering every muscle, every breath, every heartbeat in service of a single purpose. In the observation deck, Admiral Quex leaned forward in his seat. Wait. Look at how he holds that weapon. Dr. Zillanoth's sensors were picking up subtle changes in the human's bioreadings. His heart rate is actually decreasing. His breathing is becoming more controlled. This is not the pattern of someone preparing to die. General Vextar raised his right arm, energy weapons charging with a high-pitched whine. Farewell, little knight. The first plasma bolt screamed across the arena, bright enough to temporarily blind anyone looking directly at it. The energy beam could have melted through starship armor. It struck empty air. G1 was no longer where he had been standing. He was moving, the sword in his hands catching and deflecting the second and third energy blasts with movements so precise they seemed almost impossible. The crowd gasped as the human closed the distance between himself and the armored giant, moving like liquid lightning across the arena floor. For the first time in his military career, General Vextar felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. The battle lasted exactly 37 seconds. When the arena's energy barriers finally shut down, General Vextar lay motionless on the metal floor, surrounded by the scattered pieces of his once mighty armor. Each component had been cut away with surgical precision, weapon systems disabled, power cores severed, defensive shields collapsed. The massive Corvan warrior was completely unharmed beneath his ruined equipment, but utterly helpless. G1 stood over his fallen opponent, his sword already back in its sheath. Not a single drop of sweat marked his face, and his breathing was as calm as if he had just finished a peaceful walk. The arena was silent. Thousands of alien beings stared down at the impossible scene before them, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Many of them had blinked and missed the entire fight. "Do you yield?" G1 asked quietly. General Vextar's mandibles clicked once the Corvan gesture of complete surrender. The ancient arena system registered the victory and announced in its mechanical voice, "Combat concluded. Victory to the human representative. By the ancient protocols, all territorial disputes are resolved in favor of Earth." Still, nobody moved or spoke. The silence stretched on until Giwan walked to the center of the arena and looked up at the observation decks. "You analyzed my sword and found simple metal," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "You were correct. No advanced materials, no energy fields, no technological improvements of any kind. What you failed to understand is that this simplicity is not weakness, it is purity." He paused, letting his words translate into the dozens of languages represented in the crowd. A knight is not someone who depends on superior equipment to win battles. A knight is someone who has spent their entire life perfecting themselves, body, mind, and spirit, until they become the weapon. The sword is merely an extension of that dedication. In the VIP section, Prime 7's crystal body was pulsing rapidly, with what might have been excitement or confusion. "Your species... Do all humans possess this level of skill?" Kim Sura, Earth's cultural representative, stood up to address the question. She had been quiet throughout the negotiations, but now her voice was clear and strong. "Every human child learns the way of the sword. Some master it, some do not, but all of us understand what it means to face difficulty with nothing but skill, courage, and determination." Dr. Zillanoth was frantically reviewing the sensor data from the battle. "This is impossible. The human moved faster than our instruments could track. His blade cut through energy shields that should have been impenetrable to primitive metals." "How?" Admiral Quex demanded. "How does a simple iron sword defeat plasma weapons and powered armor?" G1 looked up at the confused alien faces. "Because technology can fail. Machines break down. Energy runs out. But discipline, training, and the will to protect what matters, these things never fail." Lee Minho had joined the others in the arena, his face showing a mixture of pride and amazement. "Sir, I've watched you train for years, but I never imagined... Every human soldier learns these principles, Jiwan explained to the crowd. We may not all reach the level of mastery, but we all understand the foundation. When you have only metal and flesh to depend on, you learn to make them perfect. General Cat was staring at the destroyed armor scattered across the arena floor. But the energy shields, how did your blade cut through them? Perfect technique, Jiwan replied simply. Every shield has weak points. Every defense system has flaws. When you understand these weaknesses completely, and when your movements are precise enough, even the most advanced technology becomes vulnerable. The crowd began to murmur as the implications of what they had seen started to sink in. If one human with an ancient sword could defeat their most advanced warrior, what did that say about humanity as a whole? Prime 7 spoke what many were thinking. We may have seriously underestimated your species. Yes, Kim Sura agreed. You have. You saw our simple technology and assumed we were weak. You saw our old traditions and thought we were primitive. But strength cannot be measured only by the complexity of your tools. Dr. Zilanoth was still studying his readings. The precision required for what we just witnessed. It would take decades of constant practice to achieve such perfection. Try. Centuries, Giwan corrected him. The techniques I use today were developed and refined over thousands of years by countless generations of warriors. Each one added something to the knowledge, making it more complete, more effective. As the crowd began to disperse, many of the alien delegates approached Jiwan with new respect in their voices. The arrogance and dismissive attitudes from the previous days had completely disappeared. Hinaralvex, helped to his feet by medical attendants, approached the human warrior. I have studied combat for 2 centuries across a dozen worlds. I have never seen anything like what you demonstrated today. Jiwan smiled and offered a respectful bow. When you have only metal and flesh to depend on, you learn to make them perfect. Technology is powerful, general, but it can malfunction or be destroyed. Discipline and skill never abandon you. The Corvin warrior returned the bow awkwardly. I would be honored to learn from your methods, if such a thing were possible. All knowledge should be shared among friends, Jiwan replied, and, I believe, after today, our peoples can indeed be friends. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership with equal territorial rights and complete sovereignty over their existing colonies. They had finally learned what the word night truly meant.